Hello. Hi. How are you? Welcome to Unitary designation. Today I wanted to talk about the activity of sharing videos on YouTube. YouTube as a free speech platform. Now, free speech is all up in the air these days. It really is. From Elon Musk buying Twitter to the conversation sort of turning to what is free speech, what is hate speech. You know, our free speech is up in the air. And there's a lot of topics within the free speech bubble that you could cover. But I might do a video on free speech and why it's important someday. I happen to think it's very important, but that's not the point of this video. So I've been experimenting with putting my videos up on YouTube lately, and it's going well. It's okay. I can't complain. And I noticed that in my head, I'm thinking about, oh, I should put something up on YouTube, and I should put something up on YouTube. And it's like, I don't necessarily have anything to say, but I just know that you're supposed to put something up frequently. And it's like, you have to say something when you have something to say. You can't just talk to talk. Freedom of speech is important, and the right to free speech might be foundational, but it doesn't... Having free speech doesn't mandate you to say everything all the time. Silence can be just as powerful. What is the saying? Silence is also conversation. Sometimes you can do a lot more, I don't know if damage is the right word, but you can have a lot more influence by just maintaining your silence. So anyways, when you're doing knowledge work, like writing essays or doing academic research or just any form of knowledge work, doesn't have to be academic, your brain is sort of working on the problem for you offline. It's sort of working while you're jogging, walking, sleeping, reading, writing, etc. And sometimes ideas just pop up and you're like, oh, that's good, I should put that on YouTube, or oh, that's good, I should put that on YouTube. But it's always like, it's always hard to crystallize them into like a full-length video. And when you have a channel like this, when you have some form of knowledge sharing enterprise, you're sort of doing some level of work offline. Some part of your synaptic total net output is committed to this video. Yeah, the next video that's gonna come up. Even if you're not like thinking about it actively, it's still part of your neurological real estate. And it just struck me how pernicious it is to create content for the sake of creating content. You should speak up when you have something to say. And fine, having some form of structure where you try to upload something weekly could be helpful to like sort of generate something. Like you can have some form of deadline to help yourself like put words into, well, print, but voice. But it's also detrimental because it creates this form of like production, this form of veil of consumerism on what is supposed to be free discourse. Like I had this conversation the other day with a friend, my brother actually, and lots of good takes were just appearing in our discussion. I was just talking and good stuff was coming up, and I was like, wow, this should be like a podcast or something, because there's a lot of good points here. And I don't know if he or I made the point, but I I commented that this is like the good points. He asked, I commented on that to him. I said, wow, all these great points are coming up. And he was like, well, can't you just put them up on your channel? And I was like, well, they don't seem to appear when it's just me talking by myself. There's something about the logos. There's something about the dialogue, the logos that is manifesting here. and it's hard to reproduce offline, hard to reproduce by yourself. I might even say it's impossible to. It's kind of logos masturbatory. Like, you can't sit by yourself and just generate new information that you don't already know. And since you fundamentally can't know who your audience is online, you're not speaking to them directly 1v1. You can't sort of gauge where they're at and try to expand their knowledge structure, meeting them where they're at. So I've been thinking about all these things, like how to find your voice, how to express your voice, how to generate new forms of, like, new takes, how to put yourself out there in a way that isn't just artificial, isn't just inauthentic, just trying to generate revenue or views or controversy, but also one that is trying to generate the spirit of the logos on your own. So these are difficult things, and I understand that a lot of content creators turn to cheap gimmicks or fresh news or something, because it's hard to speak as if to another person by yourself, and it's also hard to have this feeling that you should generate some form of content just because, right? So you either have something to say or you don't, but it's hard to have something to say that is fresh, authentic, real by yourself. So how to combine those? Well, a lot of people write scripts, a lot of people write down ideas and try to, like, oh, I should talk about that, and I have a bunch of notes, but there's something false to me about creating a script and then reciting it, because it's not that it's not off the cuff, but it's so, like, you never show up to an honest discussion or just a communication, like a conversation. You don't never show up to a conversation with a script. You don't show up and be like, here's 6 or 7 good arguments, I defeated you, goodbye. Like, it's always dialogical. You're always trying to expand your knowledge structure, and when it's just you shouting into a webcam, it's or a microphone, sorry, that's not conducive to it. So should you put your videos up? Because you expose yourself to a significant amount of risk, and you also expose yourself to post hindsight. Your old views are up there forever. I think so. I think the way forward is to stumble through bad videos and bad takes, and to make mistakes and to make them publicly, because that's the way forward out of total ignorance. And you also build something like competence if you keep doing it. You learn something from that video, you learn something from that video, and it's possible to produce authentic YouTube content. It is, without a script. If you stick to the subject matter, then it's probably better. Don't be too focused on the reception. Just be focused on what the essence of the idea you're trying to communicate. Right? So if you're trying to make a cool video about stoicism, make a cool focus on the subject matter of stoicism. Don't focus on how to get hooks and likes and, you know, sponsorship deals and everything. Focus on the content. It's like Blizzard, the game company Blizzard. They have this old saying of gameplay first. Now, you can debate whether or not they adhere to that today, but they used to. That's what made them great. That's what made them formidable. It's like, gameplay first. And you can say the same thing about YouTube, or at least about quality content. It should be content first. It should be ideas in an unfiltered way. You should be allowed to hear what someone has to say and then be like, oh, I disagree with that, but not with there. How did you get to that, etc. It should be... I think what I'm trying to say is the freedom, like the intellectual climate, the lack of noticeable pushback, the lack of, like, the skeptical, oh, what do you got attitude, this, like, open sort of sharing, idea oriented discourse environment is what we should try to promote. Not being like, I'm trying to create my space, I'm trying to create you're trying to create your space, I'm being fake nice to you so you'll promote me, etc. This is like, no, you should actually want to know what other people are thinking. Like, if you have this mindset where I'm locked, I'm trying to confirm my own beliefs, and I'm waiting for you to get on my page, then it's like, how are you ever going to have a discourse? Like, I've had some conversations with people like that, who are just like, if you interrupt them, or if you contradict them, they're like, not just offended, but almost like it's personal now. Just because you've aired disagreements. There seems to be like a lack of openness to new ideas, or at least to just talking about ideas. This look of, oh, here he's talking again, like make it stop, please. This NPC that I'm supposed to just unload on is talking. He's like, we've stopped respecting the autonomy in each other. Especially I see this with the young people at university now, because I happen to be at university and I meet a lot of young people. They're so, I don't want to say indoctrinated, but they're so used to this cult of narcissism, this sort of like tendency to be like, it's me, and when people interrupt me, that's I'll allow it. I'll allow these peasants to interrupt me. It's the ego is taught, to quote Bo Burnham, like the narcissism is honed. It's like trained. So and it's so disconcerting, because you have to interrupt someone to make a counterpoint. Like, they should be wanting the counterpoint, but no, they just want the shutdown of the internal monologue that occurs when you're talking. So they're just talking to talk. They're not talking to express or to grow. They're just talking to fill the air. And then if you happen to transgress against their ravings or their narcissism, then you're somehow to be excused, or sometimes not excused for that. It's so pernicious, and it's more dangerous than I make it out to be, because if you have an intellectual climate that is like that, then how are you ever going to have people contradict you? And you need people to contradict you. Like, you can't have people afraid to make YouTube videos or channels because they're afraid of what you might say, or just the fact that I have to worry about someone finding this video in 7 years and disagreeing with some point. That environment, that climate of fear, I think that's intentionally made. I think people who dislike free speech, dislike free sharing of ideas, they thrive on making these sort of idea chambers, and it's not good for them. You're not growing as a person if you're in an idea chamber, and you can never create total unity or total uniformity in your idea chamber. So, like, if you create a space where you parasitize people who don't share your views, by a process of natural selection, the most, like, the views will just get more and more intense, and you'll just filter more and more people off. Like, the hallmark of what we achieved in the West with Mill, with Locke, with Bentham, with Hume, like with all these philosophical thinkers, the hallmark of what we achieved was this kind of, you have yours, and you can discourse publicly, and I have mine, and I can discourse publicly, and we sort of navigate together how we should run the world, the country, the city, the town, the village, the country, the continent, etc. But if we deviate from that into like I'm trying to get mine and you're in my space, and that's, in some sense, that's inevitable. We're chimps, right? We're basically chimps. 6 million years ago, roughly 5, whatever, we split from chimps, and it's like, we're still just chimps competing for, like, the attention economy, right? Everyone's competing for views and attention, and if I listen to you, that means I don't get to speak, and it's so, like, YouTube was supposed to, YouTube and the internet was supposed to be the opposite of that. It was supposed to be, you have your platform, go make your content, enjoy, right? Be free, say what you have to say what you need to say, right? The John Mayer song. say what you need to say, say what you need to say. So it's like, now we got one eye on the number of views and like one eye on the competition and like 0 eyes on the actual content. And it's so, and the platform itself has evolved to promote this kind of infighting. And I don't know, it's just not what I got into YouTube for. When I first saw YouTube on like in 2008 to 2012, when I first had my first channel, it was all about sharing your talents. Like, look what I can do. Look what my cat can do. And it just slowly became so, not just YouTube by the way, but Twitter and Instagram and Reddit and Facebook and all these platforms, they just became so laden with venom and like animosity and like jealousy and resentment and just all these not just anti-free thinking, but anti-freedom, period. People just wanted you to not express yourself. And it's like, why does it bother you that I express myself? Why? You don't have to watch this. You don't have to listen. Why does it offend you that I'm free to say what I think? And armchair psychology here. Could it be because you don't feel free to say what you think? And if that's the case, shouldn't you deal with that instead of stopping me? Like the Hindu sage Ramana Maharshi said that it's way easier to wear sandals than to clothe the whole world in leather. You can put down some form of carpet on the whole world so you don't have to walk on sharp stones, but it's much simpler to just wear sandals. And I mean, there's just so much truth in that. Like, if you don't like something, then move on. You don't have to nerf the world just because you don't like it. It's not productive. You want a situation where a lot of different games are happening, because then the people playing the game you disapprove of aren't going to come and ruin your game. And as long as they're all nested in a meta game of like a functioning society, you don't have to worry about it. Let the goth kids be goth, let the chakra healers be the chakra healers, let the ASMR people be the ASMR people, let the gun nuts be gun nuts. Like, as long as nobody sort of like tries to control the meta container of all these minigames, then you're fine. You can play your chess game, you can play your relationship game, you can play your I want to drink coffee on a Saturday game, but when someone starts to control the container or want to control the container, and the way you control the container, i.e. society at large, is by ruining freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of expression. So yeah, YouTube and Twitter and all these platforms turns out to be more than just trivial. And the way we act on this platform turns out to be more than just trivial. It will shape how we use this medium, will shape how the modern world plays out, how the history of the internet is written. And just like the history of the book or the printing press was the history of how it was used, right? Mass media and newspapers and journalism and articles, and journalism had an ethic and had an integrity, and the most successful YouTube content creators generally appeal to something somewhat authentic. Now obviously there are people who specialize in very mindless forms of entertainment, but by and large the YouTube channels that tend to make it in sort of like the mid-tier range, they're channels that just does good content. Now you can argue, is having 3 or 4 people work on a YouTube channel and create some content, psychological well-being advice, is that what you want for a free speech platform? Maybe. I don't know. I think YouTube has tried to find its own platform, but I always envisioned it would be like this. Just some guy in his basement talking about trying to create some form of discourse. Not this highly curated, inauthentic sort of like video essay content. And there's nothing wrong with that. I enjoy Nerdwriter. I enjoy all these great video essayists, but I don't get the feeling that they're trying to grapple with the implication of the medium or like self-realize. They're trying to create videos that will fill 10 to 20 minutes of your day and then have you think, oh, that's neat, I'll take that under advisement. And that's not all this can be. And especially when you're trying to talk about freedom of speech, means you should be free to just upload a video and have people react to it. Just like if you were saying this out loud in a town square, you'd have people interrupting you, oh, I disagree with that. And, you know, then you can have something akin to a dialogue online. That's brilliant. That's epic. That's, yes, right? But these highly curated, it's just not the same. It's just not the same. It's the same platform, but it's not the same thing. So I don't mind video essays. I love them, but they're not the same thing as like a dialogical exercise. So, if anything, I wanted to make a video about free speech in YouTube, because I feel like the implications are in very high, but if you can't say what you need to say, then it's a wasted medium. It's not just a wasted medium, because it's become ipso facto the default internet TV. It's also like, if you can't say certain words, and I literally can't name them right now, but there are certain idea traditions that I can't discuss. There's viewpoints that I can't air. There's people and political events that I can't comment on. Is that what we want? Never mind whether or not it would offend people. Do you want an environment where you have to self-censor your thoughts before they even get to be tried out? You can't talk about that. Why? You can't ask why. Oh, okay. Do you want that kind of intellectual climate? Do you want your kids to do you want to think in that environment? Or you have to like think in like loops and arbitrary positions? The people who try to control your thoughts and your speech, they're not people you want to associate with. Like nobody fundamentally good want to control your thoughts. So I say screw it. I say what you need to say, and then pay the price for your words. But don't live your life in fear of the thought police or whatever, or the elder generation or something. Say what you need to say. That would be my take on it. So that's going to be the title of this video. Say what you need to say. And then the rest, the chips will fall where they may. And it's a hill worthy of dying on. People always say, like, why die on that hill? Well, the hill that enables all other hills, that would be a hill to die on. And that hill is freedom of expression, freedom of thought, freedom of speech. And if you're not going to die on the hill that enables all the other hills, then you're already dead. So it's not that you don't have a... It's not that you have the choice whether or not to die on that hill. You don't have a choice. This is the place to die. Otherwise, you're already ipso facto dead. Dead in the sense that you can't express your freedom. And freedom is... You're not alive if you're not free. Not really. So, to all the people who just want to control your thoughts, my thoughts, our thoughts, you know, fuck off. If you hear this and it offends you, then you know, up yours, buddy. I'm allowed to say this, and I'll die before I lose that right. So there you have it. Okay, this was a bit more serious than usual, but I hope you still enjoyed it somewhat. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time on Unitary Designation.